Frank, what is going on today in the addiction recovery world that we need to notice?
Sherry, there's so much going on in the addiction recovery world. The primary issue that exists and is driving my days is the issue of insurance companies leaving their insureds at the doorway of recovery centers. They're not responding. There's been a change in that industry, in their response, and their lack of responding in compliance with the Parity Laws is just disheartening, and it's changing the way that people are getting recovery, and many aren't because of that.
Parity laws, not everyone knows what that means, so simplify what a parity law is.
The parity laws are laws that require that the insurers, the healthcare insurance carriers, respond to both mental health and substance use disorder issues to an equal level that they do to the medical and surgical side. So whether that's inpatient days or outpatient visits, really on the financial focus, but that they would be equal, so that people with mental health issues and those with substance use disorder would not see a lower level of care provided or coverage provided from the health insurance carriers.
So are the insurance companies going outside parity laws? Are they actually not accommodating these parity laws so that addicts and alcoholics are not getting the services that they need?
That's exactly what's going on, and it's been going on for a long time.
Frank, I want to make this really simple for our viewers. Explain what outpatient is, explain what inpatient is, and what that means for someone out there who has a child that, let's say, is struggling with the heroin addiction.
Okay. So when it comes to recovery, you have different options. So you have detox, that anybody who has any substance use disorder is going to have to go through to clean their system of their substance,
right,
so that they can then be treated in an appropriate fashion. So detox is really necessary for anybody that wants to get clean, that wants to heal their disease. Then you have... It's
also a safety issue from what I understand. It's very dangerous to detox from at home. I mean, we're talking suicide possibly.
Yeah, it's a process, and I say that with quotes around it.
Exactly.
Yeah. And then you have inpatient. Now, inpatient is literally where a client would go and stay. They're full-time, 24/7 in a facility. They don't have their phone to contact their dealers. They don't have outside communication with anybody. They don't have their cars. You remove them from the environment.
The triggers.
All the triggers, exactly. And the freedom for them to run and do what they need to do. And then you have outpatient. So you have intensive outpatient, which in essence, it's a recognition that this particular person needs a more intensive outpatient treatment, which means that they would go to a facility, they would go through their group, they would do the normal medical testing and reviews with the physicians and psychologists, but they have their communication devices, they have their car, they have their freedom.
In and out.
Yes.
This is really unbelievable to me that we were talking earlier, you can't turn on the TV without seeing some kind of show about the heroin epidemic, the massive heroin epidemic that's going on nationally. Shows all the time, media talks about it all the time. Why aren't they talking about the truth?
Well, that's part of the battle, is getting the message out. And instead of talking about the epidemic that we have, although that's necessary to paint the picture, opioids are massive, massive. I mean, we have over 47,000 deaths attributed to overdose in 2014. So with that being the case, we know that that's present. I mean, that's not even 2015 numbers. But what's not being talked about is, why are those numbers so high? Is it just that addiction has grown? Absolutely. Has the opioid distribution, the free will kind of prescription writing added to it? Absolutely. But what's happening is it's harder and harder for people to get help through recovery centers because of the carriers not responding and staying compliant. It is a battle that many parents that I speak to who have lost loved ones will share vehemently, just share the stories with much angst and emotion, because we all know that when somebody who is struggling with substance use disorder is ready to get help, that's the time you need to act.
So what does that look like? In other words, they're getting into treatment and they're only staying for short periods of time. What does that mean, that they're not accommodating these addicts and alcoholics that need help and their families?
Yeah, so literally what's happening is the insurance carriers, in not honoring the parity laws, are capitating coverage. And that's a strong word to use, maybe overstep the application there, but where we used to see insurance carriers respond to provide detox services for heroin addicts and opioid addicts, they're now limiting it and pretty much only allowing detox for alcohol.
This is what I've heard.
Yeah, yeah. And so if you're...
someone strung out on heroin is not going to get the services that an alcoholic would get, even though it is the same disease.
Correct. That is correct.
Wow.
That is correct. And they're limiting the inpatient stays. Where you used to see 15, 20, 30, sometimes upwards of 45 days approved for inpatient, they're now limiting it down to between 3 and 7, 8 days. And they're not allowing enough of time to pass for somebody who's struggling with substance abuse to deal with the underlying cause. We all know that long-term care is a key to long-term sobriety.
The model that works is 90 days at least.
That is correct.
And so what you're telling me, not only is it not 90 days, not only is it not 30 days, you're talking 8 days. Someone is supposed to be ready to face the world after a severe addiction disorder.
Right, and that's after they get in. But the insurance companies have taken an official position of fail first. So if somebody's not sought out help before and gone to a recovery center, they won't get, in most cases, they're not going to get approved for detox unless it's alcohol. And they're not going to get approved for inpatient. They're going to be sent to what's called IOP, which you're familiar with, exactly, intensive outpatient. And they're not even going to get the services approved that are necessary. Intensive outpatient is
Explain
just that, supposed to be.
our viewers what intensive outpatient is, because the bottom line is that's when someone has the freedom to drive around, they have their phone, they can call their dealer, they're not, you know, in a structured environment, which is what they really need when they're trying to get off drugs or alcohol.
Yeah, oh Sherry, I wish we had the time to really delve deeply, but in basic form, to allow an addict to have free will and run around and have that exposure. The disease of addiction, and it's important that we talk about that way because that's exactly what it is. It is a disease. You know, first time may be a choice, second time may be a choice, third time it's not a choice. You're changing the makeup of your brain. Somebody with that disease, given the freedom to go through withdrawal and then having the opportunity to go into the neighborhood or find areas that they need to get their fix for whatever their issue is, sending them to IOP the first time is absolutely, it's abhorrent that they do that.
It's insane, and I can't believe this is 2016 and we're still talking about this and we're still having to make people aware that it is a disease. I mean, this is something that should already be out there. It's a known fact.
Right.
Yeah, so why is the media not telling the truth?
That's a great question. I don't know. I will tell you that, you know, the insurance companies, having been in the insurance world for 20 plus years.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you, what is your motivation to be so active in this cause?
Well, I have a personal attachment to substance use disorder. I have a family member who struggled for many, many years and is still struggling with substance use disorder. My wife and I had got married very, very young, and we were 19. And by the time we were 23, we were bankrupt, trying to answer this need. We didn't know, well, I didn't understand addiction and substance use disorder then. I didn't know it was a disease. I did not understand it. So we did what many people do, and you throw money at it, and you
were an
try.
untreated codependent, as we say.
There you go. There you go. And so so that's a personal side. But then the professional side, we as an agency, I deal with facilities across the nation. We have it's a healthcare niche that we focus on in the insurance world. And I deal with CEOs of these centers across the country. And they're all battling the reimbursements that are not only decreasing, it seems like they're going away, the limitation of getting, providing coverage. Many of the facilities are run by, in their operations, and certainly in many of the C-suite of people, those in recovery. So they understand the battle. Sure. They understand it's a disease. And it hurts their heart.
I was just, that was coming out of my mouth, that this is heartbreaking.
It is.
This is absolutely heartbreaking. And so I want to know, besides getting your attention, getting my attention, getting our viewers' attention, how do we get our state and national leaders' attention?
We need to, as a nation, first be informed of this. And for those watching this video, I really hope that they share it in every aspect possible. Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. Get the message out. We're working to try and get national media to cover the story.
Right.
It's not hyperbole. It's not made up. It needs to get out there. But for those who get informed, what they need to do is get a hold of their attorney general in their state. They need to write their congressman and their senator. They need to get involved. There has to be a groundswell of people in our nation who say enough is enough. Insurance companies may be too big to fail, but they're not too big to be kept to the law.
Why now? Why is this happening now, where all of a sudden they're not adhering to these parity laws? Why now?
I have to tell you, Sherry, it isn't even just now. What has happened is we've reached a crescendo with this issue. And the centers that are providing good, strong, long-term care and seeing the results of years in business and long-term sobriety of their clients, they're seeing the insurance carriers act in a way that they've never seen before. Literally.
Is it across the board with most insurance carriers?
It is. There isn't any one or two or three that are guilty. They're all acting in a way that is very similar, and they're backpedaling away. They're not keeping to the parity laws, and there are folks dying in the streets. There are folks dying in the streets. I spoke with a wonderful mother in New Jersey a couple weeks ago. She's doing yeoman's work in South Jersey, and eventually she will be on the national stage because her story and her son's story has to be told. Sal was trying to seek treatment, and long story short, a facility did not have a bed because he was a heroin addict.
Mm-hmm. Exactly, that's what you're saying. They're not treating heroin addicts.
So a few hours after Patty got off the phone with one of the centers, she talked to a friend and said, call them back and tell them he has an alcohol issue.
So she had to lie.
She called back, said he has an alcohol issue. All of a sudden the bed was available. The problem was he got in, and treatment was based on an alcohol dependency and not heroin. And the detoxing process for alcohol is different than heroin.
Absolutely.
Had an adverse effect on him, and he was released days later and wound up dying within a week of an overdose.
That is a horrible story.
Yeah.
But it really illustrates the seriousness of this problem, that someone would go to such great lengths to make up a story to get the treatment that they needed, and then he died anyway.
Yes.
Did he die of the disease or from the treatment? Or?
He died of an overdose.
He died of an
overdose.
He died of an overdose. Oh, I mean, I'm just...
I know, it takes your breath away, because these are, and her story is one of tens of thousands across our nation.
Okay, so again, I'll use that example. I have a daughter. She's struggling with heroin addiction. Is she going to be able to get into an inpatient where her freedoms are taken away?
Well,
she can go to a detox and be safe and be in a structured environment.
Yeah. Here's what I will tell you. Every case is different, but what we're seeing now is the majority of the time you are not going to get into detox unless your substance is alcohol. And so
they're discriminating, heroin addicts.
There's inequality across the board when it comes to the treatment of those with substance use disorder. There are some, I mean, it's still a battle for people to recognize that, an addict is not represented by a young girl laying in an alley with torn fishnet stockings and a short skirt, dark black dyed hair and circles around their eyes with a needle in her arm.
Right.
That's not addiction. That does not represent the majority of addiction. As a matter of fact, most addicts are not, that's not representative.
Addiction
it's the normal.
It could be a housewife at home.
It's you,
it could be
it's
a school teacher. It could be, it could be a professional doctor. It
Absolutely.
can be anybody that needs help.
Yeah.
So what can we do to help this cause today? Where can people contact us or contact their legislators?
Well, we set up a website, recoveryreformnow.com. And on that website is resources for everybody in every state to contact their elected officials, their congressmen, their senators, and their attorney generals. And we've included on there sample letters for them to send and sample scripts if they want to call their office, as well as email contact information.
Makes it really easy for them, so
yes.
Anybody can help out.
Yes, we need people to get involved and tell our elected officials enough is enough. They need to fall in line and be compliant with the parity laws.
So what do we say to that hopeless addict out there watching this video, or to that hopeless family member who loves an addict?
Well, I think you say these three things. One, you have to get involved in contacting your elected officials and saying enough with operating outside the parity laws. They need to be compliant and fall in line with the parity laws. Two, there is hope. There are centers that will work with them. There are support groups that will help them through that. And number three, eventually, that person, I really believe, will get the help, but to do all that they can. Like somebody who's drowning, you don't need to tell them to yell for a life preserver. You know, stand on the top of a mountain, knock on doors, scream help. There are places that can help, but until the insurance companies are made to fall in line and operate in a legal sense, they're going to be battling that forever.
So what I'm hearing you say is not to ever give up.
Never give up.
Never give up.
Never, never, never give up.
So we have a website that we'd like people to go to. Please tell us more about that.
Yes, for those interested, I'd love for them to write their congressmen and senators, and also to get in contact with our Attorney General. We are going to provide on recoveryreformnow.com sample letters, sample scripts if they want to call, and emails for them to write their elected officials and say, enough is enough, we need reform now.
Please say that website again.
Sure, that website is www.recoveryreformnow.com.
Thank you, Frank.
Thank you very
so
much. Thank you.